Chapter 9: The Two-Person Battle, A Case for Fighting. Part 4D. Who decides to fight? We all have dealt with experts in empowered positions, people that should not have been promoted by acknowledging the fraud that stands in front of you. This may be just another example of fake it till you make it. This is a situation that is not taken kindly to in martial arts, as there are strict tests to make sure exponents are genuinely skilled before claiming rank and power. You may now be thinking that there are lots of frauds in the arts, and they are getting away with their deceptions. I acknowledge this is the case, and it is happening way too often, but I am also aware the bigger the critic, the greater the chance of fraud is in the making. I think everyone has sensed at times people with less than adequate knowledge becomes aggressive and defensive of their choices. We also recognize there are people that are more likely to achieve social successes even though they are less knowledgeable and lack people skills. Not to say it too loudly, the systems we develop and trust are exploitable and promote frauds. Now I want to segue to something that is even closer to all dedicated martial artists by addressing another type of fraud that sits in the pit of your stomach and annoys the crap out of you. We train so hard to squeeze it out, and nothing seems to change except the fortification of our armor projecting greater fight defensibility. I will begin by saying these inner gremlins are in all of us, by being mere mortals. Gurus would want us to believe they are the only ones that are capable of cleaning out these inner imposters. So, if you are a human deity with special powers, my guess is, you are still dealing with inner monsters. Some of the best hero stories are really about statements of the inner fears being front and center, not the fact the person was triumphant. So, it is not unexpected to understand why people never truly see the light, and are willing to promote the lie, no matter how conscious we are of the deception. This is not to say those well-oiled ultimate skills are less effective because of an inner fault. Also, this is not about who is better and what is the better system to follow. We will always face inner gremlins of doubt when we are a passive responder to other people's ideas and opinions. I can certainly understand an expert is a drip under pressure. To be a professional and to be considered the best in your field must be a huge realization of one's own limitations. I wonder if God would feel like this too. No, the Lord is the ultimate and has access to all things and can be everywhere at the same time. Here lies the origins of the fraudster, which is the emissary of the best, having invested too much time and money in their beliefs. Now willing to misinform interested parties, there are no cracks in the presenting dogma. This ultimately primes the aspiring or settled martial artist to copy. The central aim for learning any martial art is to venture into the danger zone and decrease the fear of a physical threat of aggression. What is being addressed here is much harder to grasp than learning a new and effective move to add to your arsenal. The unwelcome sense of inner corrosion has been covered up by generational deceptions obscured by obsessive training and knowledge acquisitions directing your attention towards strategy and personal armor. Simply, it is our revered expert that is most susceptible to inner doubts. They are under the most pressure to perform. Just like writing this, I know deep down there is always something missing. Fear not, it is expected our fellow human voyeurs are intently watching confidence, aiming to uncover people's weaknesses as a social sport. Here is the kicker: what if the inner fraudster cannot be removed from life's proposed equations to live better? So far, our outward impressions of our inner voices of doubt have been effectively silenced by adhering to current dogma. Not to ignore the obvious, that is projecting weakness in the fight world is to be always avoided. You may have not noticed, the more you learn to fight, the more you are asked to fight. This is not to say you do not enjoy fighting, it can become very addictive. One thing is for sure, the fear of being dominated and losing does not change. Whatever your standing, the pecking order of society reigns supreme, and to play second fiddle would mean submitting to someone you initially graded to a lower rank. Through the collective safe communications with experts, I noticed the fear of loss was unbearable compared to the newly minted novices. It is as if they feel they are never good enough with all their skills. I have seen a similar attitude in tradespeople needing to buy more and more tools, now filling their vehicle to overflowing, but has little effect on making them into the expert they want to be. To make things even worse, they avoid the prospect of building their own house to their expected standards. It is easier to use social systems to motivate select improvements by entering competitions and winning to receive short-term gratifications for a job well done. I am sorry for the lengthy introduction, but I want to explore who is this person that decides to fight. I know the discussion is supposed to be about who chooses to fight, and I will get around to explaining this in more detail, as I am directing the query away from the aggressor back to you. The target audience of these words is supposed to be martial experts, the very people that make responsible choices for our up-and-coming new artists that would do well to know more about the trappings. I would hope we all start our martial journey seeking and acquiring the best information that will fulfill our inner desires to the fullest. Yes, the world of martial arts offers a lot of side tracks to follow, and in time you will develop a love of some niche aspects. Within all these arts, they are good at sales and set up their flavor of experiential experiences, catapulting one's defensive imaginations under fighting conditions. It is interesting to note, the more you learn about martial arts, the more you are faced with the prospect of having a fight. My aim as a guide is to talk to all levels of martial arts, while addressing the elephant in the room that simmers when in the company of other artists. As the martial artist expands their experiences to include effective stories of acceptable successes against imagined enemies found in combative rings, they seem to also get better at ducking and weaving their inner imposter that lurks deep in the bowels of their newfound confidences. It is time to close the book, indicating no one is smart enough to address this issue and end it. I would like to say bye and never to cross paths ever again. On second thoughts, you are right, it is not such a big issue, because there are answers which you can contemplate if you are courageous enough to have a chat with your inner imposter. The know-how is out there to have a chat with your inners, and not look crazy, but what is not so sane is kowtowing to the status quo, capturing the common criteria of the perfect warrior's mind. This has given rise to having successful tough-nuts ruling the airwaves unabated. I know, no matter how obsessed you are to be that perfect martial artist, there is no denying there is a monster eating away at your hard work. I get it, you would not waste time thinking about this, when there are far more rewarding activities to attend to, knowing inner developments bears no witness to my successes. But there is a flaw in your armor, telling you stupid is, stupid does, and this is connected to that ridiculous inner voice. So where are you standing on this? In public, it does not exist, and anyone who brings it up must be disciplined and controlled. From where I stand, it has got to be important, but self-disclosures is never going to see the light of day, while there are powerful influences offering more than hope and techniques to occupy people's superhuman ideals. I have personally experienced these secretive self-disclosures on a regular basis outside the usual martial forums. The inner demon's questions are usually constructed in a manner to test the waters related to my reputation. It was obvious that my responses would act as a spotlight on misplaced understandings on the deeper meaning of martial arts. By its very nature, it surely must be an exposure of arrogance, and then comes the statement of rebirth and work. My hand would come up, expressing an immediate stop to their imaginative avalanche of possible solutions and further self-disclosures. I am not here to carry their monkey or spend my expertise solving problems they have dreamt up. I get it, they are real feelings, and these concerns can get to the heart of the conundrum that plague so many martial exponents through the ages. The time spent communicating was meant to only highlight a process to personal insights. I would change tact and ask who is it that decides to fight. A meaningless question, until you realize they choose to answer it, I do. The next time you open a discussion about your inner issues, own them instead of offloading them on another person. For example, how do you choose what to do next when you break your leg during a fight? Your choice changed, not because someone told you and you responded in kind. If I show and tell you how to do some magic, you always have a little me inside of you supplying the checks and balances to when and where you present your tricks. All I want to do is start your own thought journey relating to the times it is all you, not some empowered critic that resides in you. It is the voice of others you admire or hate that surface at inopportune times during your conscious life. It is my expertise that derails your development. My know-how must be better than yours. Well, then you will always be waiting to respond after considering what others might think. Your decision to change course after breaking your leg was your decision alone, and I am sure your inner critic did not surface until you decided to spend time comparing yourself to your own imaginary imperfections offered by martial memes. Thought independence is not a new concept that emphasizes a person's freedom from outside influences. Politics would be a lot more sensible if this was the case. I get it, taking sides is socially securing. This is why sports thrives and profits greatly by driving team support. I am not here to divide supporters of the self-defense drive, as we all want to develop effective strategy, be it for health or the best takedowns. Martial artists are aware of social aggression and assuredly want to walk away relatively unscathed, as well as expecting an enhanced lifestyle and, more importantly, comfortable perceptions. Sometimes the promise has religious overtones requiring high levels of loyalty or receive punishment. The other salient drive is the overlord of toughness, brandishing the warrior who has achieved perfect inner harmony at being one with the fight ceremony. Finally, the imaginings of having to fight for life by hitting the lottery card have now found the insurance way provided by martial excellence. All these joys can be disrupted by pitting martial athlete against nobodies or novices, only to find out most of the feared social aggression arises from the overzealous experts we respect who also drive the prevailing sales pitches. The shine begins to wear thin as the martial athlete winds down their career, as peak performance is no more, and wisdom sets in. With more time for thinking, the gremlins of past begin to resurface with a vengeance. Now it is time to extend the defensive response by spending even more time perfecting inner control, and maybe find enlightenment. It is no wonder why dedicators need more magic to complete their journey as the fully absorbed martial expert. I can only ask myself, are you reading these words or living these words? The insights that I am about to uncover are not technical or competitive in construction. They are the next level in a person's martial development, capturing and enhancing a maturity to face yourself by looking into the metaphorical mirror. So, who is it that decides to fight? If it is the opponent, you literally have no control over the situation and self until you submit the aggressor. If it is you, you have all the information you need to do what you like from your point of view. The first lesson is the world is not black and white. For example, you do not have to consider or face the knife welding crazy and defend yourself with your expert skills. The skilled martial artist is trapped and bound to the query by the conditioned code of self-defense. The absolute impression in truth does not even exist, only in your imaginations. We are conditioned to take other people's fears at face value, not realizing the request is the social way to take your free thought away by setting them on a path to self-destruction. The truth is there is no knife attack, it was the other person's mental construction until you passively decided to carry the monkey for that person. The issue is you only exist as the victim in the knife attack equation, because you are standing there connected to the inquirer's suggestion, hypnotized. If you were too busy to listen as the receptive social being, would the request gain traction, or could you have been safely eating lunch? This is your choice from the start, ignored because we are easily mesmerized by our need to be the human problem solver. Heavens forbid if your knife defense fails. I sense now that I am about to be dragged back into the fray by the proverbial what if comeback, such as what if it is a real knife attack. I know these questions keep coming ad infinitum till the actual scenario plays out. At first this is not easy to get your head around. Let me put it this way, if I never learned martial arts, what is the likelihood of facing a knife attack? It is about as likely as facing a hungry lion. Social bandits peddling fear are everywhere requesting answers to problems they have dreamt up to make your life miserable. Here is the kicker, if you were not ever present to hear the question, there would be no problem. But what if? Problem delivery is what sets us up to be a valued human being, ensuring people will attend to your successes and failures. This is certainly a big part of the social trap that is meant to ensnare your attention, while the good of people's enquiries find time to pick your pockets. We are problem solvers by nature, and far less confident when we become experts in our chosen fields of interest. We hope to make people better even when pounding and grounding someone's face. We are bound by the code of answering impossible questions, thus allowing people to walk on the moon for the good of the collective. Tribal mediocrity is the social response that confirms everyone is dealing with the same problems, assuring the best solution is to wait for an expert savior to step forward and solve the issue for the majority. Scientists will fix it, so why cry over spilt milk? When we decide to live to reinforce the status quo, nothing can be done beyond the catch cry. This is why the knife attack scenario is such an attention grabber, entrapping all who can imagine the shiny flashing sharp knife leaving huge bloody stains everywhere. But what if the knife attacker is very skilled? How would you deal with the situation now, escalating the enhanced imaginations crippling the best of us? I would like to suggest the knife was never the problem, and this goes for the imagined expert wielder. I will repeat my assertion, who is it that has decided to stand there and carry the monkey for the who? The issue is you are left plugging apparent holes in the dam. It is the acceptance of the monkey that is the problem to solve. I learned many years ago, when facing a group of aggressors, my skill deprivation was not the need for a bigger hammer. I realized I was not the one asking for the fight. Suddenly the envisaged problem lifted out of sight, thus revealing the issue was more about me, not the impressions of an attacking group. The task of staying safe becomes so much easier to handle by simply removing the only person that matters. My solutions suddenly became invisible to those problem-creating perpetrators. The advantage of numbers and weapons surrounding me was nothing more than a spooker's tale. Deep down you know this, as you already have decided to avoid all things group attack. It is too hard to even imagine till some expert drags you back to considering the problem. The problem is only absolute if it exists in your head. Mental freedoms capable of separating you from the social traps is knowing an untrained person has just as much right to succeed against a group attack. But what if you were attacked by a group of people? In truth, you are still eating lunch somewhere else. I wonder if you have connected the dots, answering why you are the person who always asks to fight. To me, the opponent always has the knife no matter what. It does not matter if I see the knife or not, or if it is a dark room, it is my choice to change everything I am about to face. I hope my actions will deliver another tasty spoon of rice for lunch, so to speak. Everything happens in your head long before it can take place, so opportunities for changing outcomes are abound. By the magic of recreation, all your imaginations can come true and be self-fulfilling. Well then, the person envisioned as a threat can now thrust the knife at you. To make it worse, the knife can be made bigger just to add more salt into your wounds to secure the imagined reality actualizing. But do you realize all this is possible because you, somehow, agreed to take part in the attack? Now take the time to look at the attack from the back of the stage. You should see the perpetrator effectively needs you to complete the act of a knife attack. If you are not there on stage, nothing can transpire, and the stage play cannot spill any blood. It is like taking a day of work, everything is possible, but it certainly did not involve you. An agreement or a union is needed to consummate the marriage to make the battle possible. If you decide to play these social games, That is fine, as it will support the status quo of martial thinking. The ground rules are set in the understanding you are requested to respond to a set number of imaged problems before you can usurp your rank. It seems if I follow the norms, lunch will have to wait. It is fine if you want to shift your attentions back to the fight and its prevailing strategies. Clearly there is an attraction to increase one's chances to be beaten up again. On reflection, my suggestions to find safety is more about thinking how stupid I can be by being thoughtful in the martial arts world. The moral of the story is not the problem presented or the magic trick, but who decides to fight. We are taught to respond to the knife wielder, rather than choices. A fight always takes precedence over personal safety to satisfy what you were taught as a martial artist. If you like techniques, then I know you like mental experiments. Now, try this one for size, break both your legs and see if you are motivated to tango. If you are sick at home, are you about to be fighting on the street? These are just alternative ways to imagine your life unfolding away from peer pressures, happily creating scenarios that support the martial game. Just ask yourself how many requests to help others have you taken on board as a response, happily consuming your time and effort for some social capital. I would think the quest for Thor's bigger hammer to smash queries out of the court is always enticing. From where I stand, exponents are standing still in many schools of self-defense, having to face repeated made-up examples of what could happen. Literally, they are making a meal out of their need to be better prepared to respond passively to the next attack. The magic is not about techniques and expert skill sets, it is more to do with why people fall into the prevailing martial traps, due to misdirection. The best insights are staring you in the face, but the martial real estate perpetuates strict mental disciplines. It is no wonder why people hesitate to sort out their role to fulfill martial performances. I must say, over the last few decades I have enjoyed watching the developments in the fighting arts, what could be described as opening approaches to greater scrutiny. This has been best captured by the ideals backing MMA, pushing the envelope relating to all things fighting. This has been truly enlightening, moving the goalposts away from performance to actual pressure testing for reliability and effectiveness. People who are interested in the changes can now learn effective skills in a very short amount of time by following some simple truths. It has become obvious for most that loyalties relating to the ultimate have been questioned and exposed for being less than efficacious. All arts can now share in these rapid improvements for the short term, still able to investigate extreme applications defining individual systems of the past. My focus here is more to do with the disconnect of self from the request to solve other people's problems. I respect skilled mentors, they have put in the hard yards and hopefully pressure tested their insights honestly. Champions do not always know how to extend their skills outside accepted forums of competitions. I do not want to investigate taboos relating to security and safety of membered martial artists. This has to be the responsibility of martial educational institutions. But I have noticed when physical prowess declines, spiritual adventure rises to overtake past physical obsessions. It would be silly to disrespect past tough attitudes and confirming stories of people's exploits into the wild. It is comforting to know people either have been or are still capable beyond expectations, confirming the long-term value of martial arts. It is the people who have shown true grit that have paved the way and have been shown to be gods of enlightenment. I am also aware of the empowerment of the status quo, turning numbers into a walled force against the strengths of being a part of the martial arts family. No better exemplified by history repeatedly highlighting dead people's contributions as revelations that did not suit the times of when the insights were introduced. There is comfort in knowing someone has climbed the tallest mountain and lived to tell the tale. The journey to success has many unspoken elements to it, captured more by our imaginations relating to invincibility, that make future stories attractive to unsuspecting martial clients. When I am in discussion, most of the subject matter is superficial, able to hide the true meaning of what would highlight deep-seated sufferings. What do you think people would express or really think about themselves? The more they know about themselves, the more crippling the information becomes, wanting to pass over their inner imposter to the main concern of mastering martial ideals. The true self is not the target of discussions. The gem is mastering pearls of wisdom, offering gold for a better life. It is good reason to stick around knowledgeable and successful people who have a positive outlook to life. I am saying something that is obvious to all, but we are adamant to avoid the ignorant, like the self. We are aware of self-sabotage. We are full of waste and fraud, a lifetime of inputs and accumulated promises of better outcomes. The joys of the moment are short-lived, and past contributors are ready with recycled ones. Every joy is passed on for another, and so on. Our inquiries will continue to sell one's attention to our mentors cheaply, never to put one's neck out to discover life's real gems. I might have thought silence and inaction will delay kicking the can down the road long enough for that moment of insight that will change everything. I have highlighted the historical repetition of these inner issues. In response, I have also presented answers in so many ways that it's time for me to sever ties. Maybe the answers lie just around the corner or in some article like this one. Do not fret or feel the guilt for not unwrapping the secrets. The status quo by design promotes mediocrity in a safe way. The social monkey can still make you feel special and useful, to say the least. Our respected leaders are also adding to the burden, knowing you will put your heart and soul towards the salvation of the prevailing mission. Oh, yes, we will have people on Mars very soon. I have no resistance towards people who have good ideas to tackle life's conundrums. If you are the one that can fight off the knife attack, that is good for everyone to know. Life is an open book waiting for interested parties to write another chapter that adds to a better martial way. But at this stage of my discussion, I feel the hair on the back of my neck rise, as the righteous bounce another ball through the hoop enforcing their prized dogma. You can see them empowered, ready with their finger on the trigger to fight, placing good people in danger. I have been threatened by a self-proclaimed peace-loving citizen with a gun, reacting to my lack of alignments to their beliefs. As I have mentioned previously, people communicate well with like souls, but are quick to amplify aggression when sensing dissent. I do not advocate anyone dominating discussions by any means. It is a huge setback to new and improved insights that are beneficial to all interested parties. The threat response attached to strict dogma lends no space for weird ideas and dreamers. It is hard to pack a good punch in front of empowered citizens, fearing the threat of retribution. It is easier to submit and give up the best years of your life until retirement looms up, hoping enlightenment and spirituality will be the answer to save you from the loss. It is during these times the inner voice raises its ugly head, ready to inform you personally of greater truths ignored. The mirror metaphor is not seen as insane, as it can improve clarity beyond the offerings of the outer manipulations. The shift to an even harsher reality of facing the self is akin to finding the way of the force and non-resistance. This is the time the soul searches for realizations beyond the accolades achieved from raw combat. Maybe now is the time to return to the mental experiment of breaking your legs again, then asking your opponent for some time to heal. I also like the idea that you were out to lunch, leaving the aggressor in a weakened state of having to decide to wait for your return. These examples are far from the obsessive fight requests usually aimed to dominate parties and outcomes. Patience and the need to lead cannot eventuate if both parties are not present. Leadership is an illusion. It is more about knowing your trusted followers will give up their mental freedoms to think on their own terms. But it is not unusual to ask people to wait because you are too busy or unavailable. Deep down I knew my boss used the lunch excuse all the time as a gap strategy, intentional or not. It costs nothing to recalibrate thoughts to regain the lead again. I think everything can start to develop in a better way by asking the right question, rather than passively reacting to indifference, believing it is somehow a personal attack needing greater reciprocal respect. The fight-back response will be amplified in proportion to one's expertise. It is not normal for the aggressor to fight someone who is superior. Already self-assured, the victim will be mentally calibrated to be inferior. Simply no one asks you to fight, unless they know they can win with some certainty. When Dumber and Dumber plays a role, it is nice to teach an idiot a lesson, and hopefully initiate a recalibration of their ability. So, what is the question a person should ask of themselves when they are already the respected practitioner in their field? I find it too easy for experts to fall back to their strengths as a way of informing followers they have the mettle to transcend most challenges a person may face. It goes without saying, they are important people to know and be mentored by to best take you through the minefield of absurdities out there in the arts. The question I want people to focus on is not a what-if query, such as imagining a situation like a knife attack insinuating their task is to find the best defense possible. I am sure most experts would agree, actual knife defense solutions are hard to come by. I want to pull the security rug from under martial query, as it is a way to instantly hypnotize the student. The alternative to scenario questions sparking imaginations of threat requesting skilled escapes from physical conundrums is by asking pundits to look beyond prescribed solutions. This means to be better informed of what is happening inside and outside of self when an aggressive connection is consummated. I know all martial skills are supposed to be the progenitor to all learning in the arts. But the fight focus offers a sect approach to life's aggression to one's safety. Yes, there is lots more to capture than those bread-and-butter strategies and techniques you are so attracted to. The infinite is the catch cry for expanding people's minds beyond the sharp blade. I have already said we connect with people of a similar mindset to feel included and comfortable, and this is no different. The question has to go beyond our cherished gratifications of a win. The eventual enlightenment is the prize, but it leaves mayhem in its wake. We are too attached to absolutes, thus avoiding real-time transformations, and prefer stagnate impressions imprinted onto our mental screens. We like to attach ourselves to definite commodities to be sensed and strengthened as a measure of improvement. We are so easily swayed to use two ultimates or ends of a spectrum to judge better or worse, faster or slower, more black than white. This is the easiest way to confirm one's understanding and position on the playing field. The impressions generated are but snapshots, still pictures of what is a dynamic event changing at speeds beyond one's conscious constructions. Dominance is still the obsession to stamp those stayed impressions on others, by asserting the connection to achieve a win. We are conditioned to stand to attention, and respond in kind to the name-calling due to lost efficacy. You are seen as the martial artist, and suddenly you are supposed to perform on stage. The social ideal of an expert defines the expected performance. It is unacceptable to ignore the request if performance is the order of the day. I dare readers to close the book and walk away from the connection. I would think this command would be easy to do, given the subject matter. But if like attract like, it is more likely you will read on and want a clearer picture of the issues. Like everything that happens to you, it is your choice to be on the road driving where the accident occurs. It should be interesting to know, accident investigators know that you can drive but need to put together the best set of pictures that represent the unfoldings of the accident. In a similar way, my intentions are to guide people to investigate why the fight occurred. The martial expert would do well to focus you on the fight, looking for improvements, and that is fine. There are no absolutes, having more of this stuff has its limits. I like people to consider situations when they have little to offer. It starts the rethink from physical strengths to how better to utilize time. It is like having no fuel to fill up the car, what are the alternatives to get to work? For martial thought, thinking focuses more on getting a better car. Maybe this is why I've seen martial artists buy fancy sports cars. Now, back to the mind experiment. You have broken your legs. What alternatives can you access when it comes to fighting? In truth, the threat does not have to change, but you can remove its immediacy from your mind in exchange for social alternatives to keep you safe. Dangers comes calling because you are there in person standing ready. If you are sick, you are not at work. If you are at lunch, you are not at the meeting, so to speak. The only threat is in your mind, and that is what the inner imposter is trying to tell you. The unwelcome aggressions you are feeling comes from your imaginations arising from the evolving connection. Guess who should be considering retiring some of the martial obsessions and expand experience to include an awareness of all your choices along a dynamic continuum? My intention is to open a door to another room that you have missed or felt had nothing to offer when weaponizing select technical skills to dominate others. The resulting attached social capital is always very addictive, trapping you into a cycle of wanting more, as people are too willing to emulate your successes. It is socially self-assuring that you have access to the ultimate fight skills and can be revered by the world. We are aware of the value of money, power as well as fighting prowess, as people want the right to success and the merchandise you are selling. The current pitch has been so profitable that insights beyond the offerings are left to chance. The aforementioned inner imposter has no place on the mantle, becoming that something we all must live with and ignore. These gut feelings are essentially the outward representations of our senses, the biological AI trying to inform you something needs attention. It represents the summary calculus of our collective experiences, specifically to act as a regulator to help smooth our path through troubled times. It could be said, you felt there was something wrong, but hesitated for too long and ignored the warnings. We have had these experiences throughout life, unable to articulate these feelings into a language that others would understand. Simply you felt the threat and failed to respond to it. Your insights are akin to what a pseudoscientist would dismiss. All I know is, experts come to me with unconfirmed inner gremlins, requesting insights on the sly. This seems weird to me, as this is my favorite area of interest. My mission here is to highlight to the reader, the person asking for the fight is always you. This may seem counterintuitive from one's experience when threatened by an aggressor. I have been drawing the reader's attention to one's inner gremlins and the addiction to training harder and faster to close the gaps. A common extension to physical training is pursuing mystical meditations and self-hypnosis, developing that self-assured warrior character. Obsessive sharpening of the sword, so to speak, is the most common stopgap solution to one's inner perception of imperfections that supports the righteous mind employed by most good martial artists. Your decision to mentally travel effectively with me requires your own feedback. It is not me that is feeling guilty about the deficit in one's armor. I would think with a flick of the mental switch, you could experience new freedoms to better articulate the unspoken on your terms. I know if your self-discussions swing back to the sword, those statements are nothing more than a word salad. The journey must restart from within. Everything that drives you to perfection is the universal critic. Maybe you are drumming up an image of a monk sitting in some lonely cave contemplating life. This is really an unwelcome social meme that will steal your mental freedoms. Could this idea be just a soul searcher? The challenge is not to fall for stereotypes from great sages or revered masters. Self-mastery is not a new concept, usually closely associated with higher skill levels emphasized in many famous stories. There are many extravagant and secretive and exaggerated path choices to achieve the martial nirvana. The honest spin is meant to confirm you are at the top of your game. The key word here is top, followed by a slippery downward realization that the magic was simply self-trust. So, why all the interest to be right, followed by outperforming other martial artists aiming for the supreme? Could this inner search be worth the look, when it is so elusive to the meditators? It is true all physical and mental obsessions will change the body and mind somehow. But this does not confirm very much more beyond physical adaptations of the body. The martial obsessions to levitate one's mind above a true inner assessment needs careful considerations in relation to delusions of grandeur. Every martial artist is collecting stuff ad infinitum, fulfilling the never-ending story of more. This is a road to a virtual success that takes you to the dark side, that needs to highlight one's strengths to connect with aggression. Success is always temporary. Realizations are hard to come by, and even harder to pave a practical path for future use. Even grasping the value of the lesson of the story of the untrained street kid as having the capability to wipe out an excellent martial artist on his own terms. Yes, your inner journey must first offload social burdens of having to win each time aggression shows its ugly head. These defensive reactions are the outward manifestations of social conditioning that attends to public approval. The worst thing learned is self-sacrifice, giving your freedoms away to other people's persuasions. Psychologists know self-sacrifice is a huge social burden, having to use empathy as a personal protection device to minimize carrying the patient's mental dilemmas. This would mean having educated the self well, having the inner voice stay calm, present and reflective. By confirming you are a player in the fight game, you have taken on the burden to fulfill the dream for all players. To make this clearer, it was your choice to consummate the connection resulting in the end goal, the fight. It was your social conditioning that triggered a selfish choice to empower your participation. Power and position have no place in one's mind when offloading the social burdens, so often offered by some cult-like dogma. Oh, we do like our fatherly chats with our cherished mentors. In truth, they really offer little towards making us responsible for our inner developments. The system does not exist for no reason, its primary purpose is to burden people with a sense of guilt to prove themselves in front of others. This is fine in a competitive society, where winners are grinners. This does nothing to help people out of the social trap, making it hard to consider alternatives to achieve life's goals. The obsession to win is a strong contender to why you decide to fight. It is a good example of taking on other people's measure of success to gain some public face. Physical aggression is strongly influenced by social drives to be seen and heard. So, any information that will win the day has to be gold, and self-sacrifice the price to pay for a moment's glory. The resulting burden is placed on students to perform as a check on compliance and dedication to the cause, which is learning to fight in the world of martial arts. What is seldom mentioned is one's knowledge choice will be the limiter to social selection, becoming the burden of your destiny. The resulting reality is you will never be perfect due to the number of blind spots built into your choices. It is hard to beat the grip of society when there is the hope of receiving the ultimate recognition. The business of martial arts is a transaction of accepting the premise you are learning combat skills. It is taboo in schools to direct students away from martial excellence by asking them to confront the annoying imposter hiding behind the confidence. I get it, learning martial arts can be interesting and a good way to escape mainstream sports like tennis. It can be a wonderful journey offering camaraderie by allowing people to invade your personal space. By combining artistic depth of skills and interesting mental approaches allows the martial artist to acquire valued social capital. It is not for the faint-hearted when expanded to express raw aggression seen in some fighting systems. The martial attraction allows the motivated to spend money and time to acquire the finesse and skills of the best branded art. It all works well, like filling out a form. You are asked to work very hard, informing you it will all get better in time, what I have described as the obsession of sharpening the sword. In recent times, the support has certainly waned for esoterically driven arts for a more fearful pound and ground approach to be the warrior. But the resulting tough guy image seems to be full of self-deceptive confirmations about their prowess. From my discussions with experienced artists, they know they have been sucked into the rabbit hole of the ultimate cage fight. Simply no pain no gain, setting the social trap to fight if you disagree. It is always your choice to fight, and why wouldn't you when you are continually spending time sharpening your sword? The fight monkey is truly on your back, reminding you of your obligations when you agreed to follow the martial way. This is like the saying, if you are playing with mud, you are certainly going to get dirty. You know you must fight at some time to avoid moving down the pecking order, otherwise all your training would be a waste of time. Martial arts can only preach the fight bias. It is a matter of when the sword will make its public debut. Without saying it too loud, somehow you are asking yourself when it is your turn to fight. Even for the best of us, our inner gremlins are feasting like invisible termites. I always thought by knowing it was your choice to fight, you are in possession of all the cards to consummate the fight or avoid it completely on your terms. Simply, it is your choice to carry the monkey for another person. This as an idea became the worst day of my life. Yes, I did grasp the value of knowing the equation that draws you into a fight. A social formula we all follow, beginning with a verbal connection, progressing to some pushing, and the eventual fight. A simple formula that is informative, insightful, and useful to break out of the social contract I signed up for on day one of my martial arts journey. That day of the fight my fear of harm was extremely intense. Not understanding nature's physiological reaction would come a calling. My bladder filled up so fast, so I had to go to the toilet before the fight. I was so embarrassed that I decided to get on a city bus soon after and disappear into the night. I reported back to my teachers, and got the worst scolding for failing not to use my sword and fight for the school. Months went by training even harder and sparring everyone in sight, getting bruised and battered, now feeling even worse having failed to perform as expected. This was shit. I did the hard yards and got whopped. Not to give up, I replayed that night repeatedly in my head, sensing even more guilt, till I accepted the obvious. I was unharmed and safe all because of my decisions. Later realizing the bad feelings were a product of peer pressure offered as the sanctimonious punishment for learning martial arts. The sword was not the problem, my outcomes was not the problems were my expectations that goes with deciding to fight for one's peers. Having to urinate is a natural fear response to extreme threat. On second thoughts, maybe nature's way was a far better solution than having paid for Thor's hammer and handcuffs to submit the attacker. You decide. My insights from that night were extremely hard to own, but the disconnect only worked by accident. If I followed the social script according to learned conditioning, I could have won by having the right to fight. In this case the fight was my alternative decision. I realized afterwards these martial behavioral formulas start from the training floor as verbal instructions that end up on stage at street level. The resulting verbal banter just before the fight is the signal to do your thing. The verbal bluster and the pushing are the fearful parts, plus a waste of resources. This is the period of hesitation. The fight is on, get on with it. So, why is this equation a social formula? Well, it fits our learned normative behaviors. It is unspoken of, and it is left unchecked, allowing it to pervade every aspect of our social interactions, including arguments and full-on violence. As martial artists we focus on defensive swords, and some environmental awareness, as ways to build a space for self-protection. This does not stop the individual's brain turning to crap when facing social aggression. When aggression is the drive, from talk to violence is preordained. Our social thoughts are not free to make alternative choices. It is like watching a script unfold, ticking off each stage of the equation. As another confirmation of our norms, our conditioned mental and physical inputs are on automatic till submission is achieved. The script seems to only accept a win-lose situation. Alternatives are treated as radical and eliminated on command. In defense we never consider why the equation is a part of every interaction. The choice to switch it on seems to be socially organized, meaning it is outside our conscious choices. By putting the equation back into the conscious continuum of life's choices, we are placing attention back into our social driving skills. Now, there is a chance to redirect our attention from the swords and handcuffs back onto the road with one's own defensive choices. Socially, we only consider the fight from start to finish as stated during our training. All other inner concerns are suppressed and overridden to prove one's arrogance towards the right for might. For every fight I have even been in and observed, I never felt defeated, living victorious as promised. So, what is the issue? Maybe it is my response to social stupidity. As an excursion away from normative behavior, I began telling challengers they were better than me, dampening my need to be righteous and dominate in each interaction. This begs the question, why then would I stand there egging on aggression, when I chose to be a minimal threat to the attacker's request to fight? Social aggression by its very nature asks citizens to fight back, no matter the skill levels. I do not think this is the ideal of defensive martial arts. The cause for fighting is a learned social response to behave as expected. The first verbal defensive persuasions are signs of avoidance and submission. The decision to participate to this familiar bullying is crippling. If you can envisage the connection from before it starts, you could have avoided the social burden by using another choice by saying you are too busy to even contemplate the request to trigger your side of the equation. This way you have made the decision that you are never going to be available to offer yourself as cannon fodder for another person's monkey to fight. Simply, do not give aggressive people your attention, learn to use alternative social skills or become familiar with antisocial behavior like a no-show. I always worry when people nod in agreement, a sure sign they see some worth in these statements, but return to what they have always done. What is annoying is they return with the same questions, having done little to uncover better and wiser answers. To me it is like returning to the habit of eating unhealthy foods, asking the doctor, why have I gained weight? I always think I have given people enough information to help them make better decisions, and they still buy the fast car wondering why their bank account is low. Inquiring martial artists tend to go back and buy better swords, and then obsess with sharpening till a better sword becomes available, and so on. To me the respectful inquiry is really a secret request to find that ultimate magic weapon that solves all doubts. So, life is great when you keep sharpening those mental and physical swords that fill time, always worth a week's motivation. Toughness and aggression seem to be satisfactory for the martial culture. So, what did we do before we learned martial arts? Wasted our time on some other obsession. The secret drive for the martial devotees is not to return to being bullied. Now you have found people of a similar kind, you can settle to accept the status quo, even though you are now being tormented by your peers. Essentially, your current chosen culture is asking you to apply yourself by requesting a fight for proof. Not to say it too loudly, having to fight is the way a martial artist is supposed to feel at home. From a psychological point of view, your fear of having to deal with physical aggression has been desensitized by slowly increasing your exposure levels to physical violence. Not like a spider phobia, the aggression monster grows in proportion to your expertise. The professionals that can use their poker face well, could hide a terrifying secret, that their fear of fighting does not get any easier. To me, it is all a cruel hoax. The need for a bigger hammer is never fully satisfying. This reminds even the best of us, the social trap extends to never being good enough. The obsession is born, and the perfectionist becomes a form of pathology. I hope this sounds familiar as a summary of life's experiences to find advantage when you decide to face off with an aggressor. Just remember it was your decision to fight, and now it is harder to avoid aggression because of your fight tricks. I dare you not to turn up for the next show, and then feel it was the right choice. It boils down to, you cannot get over being the victim of faceless bullies, culminating into driving guilt to get back on the fight bus. My suggestions to choose a new path is more likely to fall on deaf ears, as there is no immediate vision of how to eliminate undisclosed social bullying. For the normal martial artist, alternative paths are out of sight. I have noticed smart antisocial people will tend to separate themselves much earlier from needy thugs by shutting down the preamble and the requested connection by using a small target approach. It is easy to be ignored if you do not fit the mold. I believe bullies are smart too, but they have no answer to a target that is not present. The discussion so far highlights the mutuality of martial attitudes is self-fulfilling, wanting to start and experience the final victory of a fight. Somehow the feared perpetrator is in cahoots with our social conditioning requesting a happy combat. Secretly you did not make this promise to yourself. Here lies the issue, and the lack of communication of these ideas, that it is your choice to fight. Defending your honor and your own sanity, it is your words that hide the truth, that aggression is your vehicle to be right. This is why I claim there is more than technical excellence and strategy. People certainly like the idea of one-upmanship and gaining the prize. Each new item considered must pass the value test, by being one better than what you have previously learned. As an alternative, I have suggested to start with the premise, everyone out there is better than you. The aim is to offload the need to defend your pride and joy, and see solutions afresh. If you think you got what it takes to fight, you will accept the challenge, with limited thought. It is like you about to receive the next drug hit. Your humble demeanor is all fake. As an expert you must be lying to yourself to pluck up enough courage to win the moment. People who believe they are empowered are great liars, especially to themselves. They can only listen to praise and reflect on the joys of telling heroic stories. Yes, praise tickles their martial ego, directing attention to what gives you the more. No one wants to get out of the door and leave the temple for good. There is more. When are you ready to ask the right question? Love is perfection and solutions are exposure to violence. So, I reiterate, what is missing? This usually draws a big blank, something that is very uncomfortable to even consider. Has the penny dropped yet? Hint, I am not waiting for an answer, or willing to help with the unspoken impasse. My guidance is free, knowing my status is limited. I am not the person you seek to be, the enlightened one. Maybe I am. It does not matter, as the interest here is you and your resistance to self-questioning. In defense, you may try to belittle what is said, that is expected knowing the social equation. Just breathe, do not think, the answers are right in front of you. I may have highlighted the issue of the inner imposter, it just helps to align the discussion. The answer is always no. If frustrations rise, you are probably standing still thinking in a passive way, responding to someone else's request. Essentially, we are social answering machines, and problem solvers for others. My aim is to free you from the automatic need to connect with others, and move on without guilt. So, why are you standing there, at attention waiting to fight? Could it be that you are trying to help the attacker, thinking you are helping yourself? In my world, the attacker only helps me to find safety. If you feel threatened, then you are spending time to find answers, you are a passive responder following social rules. If your response is yours alone, it will fit the antisocial mode. If you are in the wrong place, at the wrong time, this is an example of a passive response where you were deep in thought, not actively reacting. Furthermore, you are selling yourself short and giving up your personal freedoms by carrying the aggressor's intent to do harm. The monkey you are socially forced to carry is totally unnecessary. If you are aware the attacker is attacking you with a knife, you have taken time not to break the connection as early as possible. As indicated by the information given so far, the social equation associated with an attack always starts with a timely consummation of a connection. It takes two to tango, and it takes time to evolve the social equation. There is nothing more frustrating than a person who does not give you the time of the day. This is a person who stays so busy practicing personal freedoms, that other people become annoyed to their peace of mind. To ask this person to fight has got to be annoying to say the least. They will not request you to leave them alone, as this would only aggravate and escalate aggression. If your normality incorporates awareness of your personal respects relating to your freedoms, your moves will shift all the problems back to the aggressor. Your real-time responses are always socially normal and respectful by instantly asking the attacker to adjust their plans in real time. Simply it is a matter of confirming the aggressor's presence and replace it with another unrelated request. It is like you have recognized they want your attention, step 1, then just move quickly on and say that you are busy and will be back soon, step 2. The normal response for the request is to wait. As with my initial experience, informing the aggressor I must go to the toilet first, left the attacker waiting none the wiser. My discovery was that my inner voice asked me to stand up to the aggressor's aggression was an illusion. Meaning a consummated connection becomes your responsibility to play your part, and in the case of a martial artist it is amplified by your training. Now, every time I get to hear martial influencers speak on technical tricks, it's got to be the greatest hoax to focus listeners away from why they are choosing to fight. They have everything in the bag to assure you of a win, and it will work for you like everyone else. The attention given to techniques is always passive, requiring you to think before you act. They are really assholes who amplify the social equation of getting into a fight, and never mention the trap. I am not indicating you cannot win a fight, my intention is to draw people out of the social trap, with alternatives that are just as efficacious towards a self-defense. If you are presently following the noise, you are being encouraged to counter aggression with a fight. From where I stand, the trap was set long before the fight takes place, starting from your upbringing to the current applications presented in training halls. As a result, you are susceptible to the fight sales, and you're promised to keep up with the latest merchandise and ideas. The expectations of being great in the fight game has developed into a burden of public performance. The so-called good guys in the arts are all too willing to praise hard work and dedication to the martial cause supporting fight opportunities. The supporters' salvation is to pay up because success is not cheap. I have spent years trying to curb the con that forces people to carry their martial burdens of not being good enough. Only if I was offering you the next best iteration in technology, that would be good. The world that promotes the passive response is hard to expose, as people are reliant on thoughts before they act as the best formula to learn martial arts. People are slaves to playing games with other people's ideas for social assurances. The only deviant you know is your inner voice hinting there must be more to your life's endeavors. You have been unknowingly selling your attention cheaply to snake oil salespeople. Attention is the most valued commodity in the universe, therefore do not give it to another person asking you to carry their fight monkey. Yes, be a team player, but on your own terms. Know when it is your time and know when you are giving time away to others. When social aggression rears its ugly and manipulative head, make sure time spent is only on you. If they want your attention, they must wait for it on your terms. For the passive thinker, this response is virtually impossible to contemplate. Deep down you know you are being taken for a ride when asked to fight, but you think you must follow the birdseed trail supporting martial life. So, what is taking your attention and driving one's imaginations into thinking patterns that insinuates you must dominate a fellow player? It is the social noise continually telling you of great fighters standing ready to be challenged, better than you are, setting up the guilt cascade of infamy. This sets your mental confirmations into threat mode, knowing you are ready to be cut down. All that work you have done to learn to fight needs more attention aiming to exceed those inner fears of being bullied all over again. These are those painful thoughts welling up from the gut, and worse still, you are forbidden to express your deprivations. It is simple to resolve in the short term, just win another fight aiming to be praised for your dedication and successes to get that good feeling again. The praise cycle is endemic in the fight arts. To lose a fight is considered strategic to find improvements that enables you to win the next fight. Each success in the cycle is the answer on how to stand on those pesky inner demons, beating them down for some inner peace. No one dares to spend time dealing with previous trauma and abuses you have experienced, so to speak. Learning to fight is just a way to avoid previous thoughts about experiences of aggressions and brutality. Naturally, avoidance is supposed to make you a stronger and tougher person, covering your weaknesses from spilt milk. No more thoughts about kowtowing to bullies who think I am a pushover. The choice is obvious and simple: copy tough people and see the demons cower in fear. As a victim of the past, everything in the fight world makes sense. But experts are their own worst enemies when they do not receive praise in a continuous manner. It is a terrible mistake to follow the big names into the obsession fire, as they are their own worst enemy. They look in the mirror and see a person better than they are. They are never satisfied with their wealth and acquisitions. They assume everyone else must be wasting time or after them becoming a newfound threat. Experts may have done the hard yards, but they are usually terrible at understanding what made them so good. More importantly, experts are more interested in protecting their reputations than helping some poor soul overcome some inner trauma. We are told the world is your oyster, but it needs the right person to guide you through the maze of challenges. Experts are extremely obsessed, making them a danger to others. My suggestion is not to give away your attention to an obsessive and aggressive person. They have no intention to keep you safe with all their promises of help. You are lucky that when your chosen mentor falters with a smile and is also able to express weaknesses openly, at least you can go back to sharpening the swords to suppress the worries. Time will heal and correct lost opportunities caused by the misdirection created by many so-called experts, self included. My best guidance is to question everything you listen to, internal and external. If you stay focused on sharpening, you must be on track to omnipotence. This sense of security flies in the wind when we comfortably reside in mediocrity, realizing everyone's struggling. We are happiest when other people fail. This is an intrinsic value of society and its pecking order. Life is too much about hearsay, lacking one's own investigations and checks. It's the realization people do not care what you think, their interest lies more with their beliefs confirming dominance. For the people who are still reading these words to glean wisdom, I will reiterate: the realization you are seeking are already yours. They are just not enacted in real time. You have learned to be the passive responder, needing time to contemplate the best response. The catch is, if you are thinking, your actions are not activated in real time. The passive mindset is always searching for answers to other people's problems. So, you are willing to spend a lifetime looking for the skills to better cope with the burden to prove your social worth. Learning passively allows access to imaginary social burdens before the event takes place. Experts are the empowered salespeople ready to take your attentions on a ride and molding it into hard work to help envision a better reality that you have not got yet. As I have mentioned many times before when discussing multiple attacker defense skills, any envisioned defensive realities will fall short, endangering your life. By learning to fight, you are mastering some future vision of a win, a plug-and-play set of skills waiting for you to push enter. We are well supported to be the passive responder for most of our waking lives, successful when there is ample time to think. This is why thinking of an ambush in the wild or a violent attack is exponentially more difficult, as there is no time to plan. This is where the active mindset needs to be understood, as it is overlooked in most martial mental models. Thus, leaving the fight mind faring poorly when facing a sudden violent attack. When experiencing an accident, the active mindset is also switched on without question. As a social being, we think well to defend against predictable events, but activate instantly to unexpected life threats. All I can say, life threats are very rare, so your passive attention can stray to any persuasion imagining the worst. Our brains process information differently when time is limited. We panic to submit or activate to avoid the danger by accelerating our responses into real time. What is not obvious, we are always utilizing these processes when we move in a continuous manner, like walking and driving. I want to highlight there is a lot happening outside the mind's eye. The body adjusts the speed and direction of the car or when walking with virtually no thought in real time. These reactive actions are effortless to say the least. They flow with the unfoldings occurring all around you in a non-critical manner. In other words, the passive responder is fed fish to eat before getting hungry, rather than learning how to fish or find other types of food. So long as more fish is given prior to events, there is no need to find other food sources to live. The Marshall table is full of fish and information requiring careful thought and practice before entering the dining ring to be happy. Fighting is the result of you deciding to cook up the fish long before you accepted the contract. Conformity is held in check by the continued offering of fish on the table, thus accepting mediocrity and its expected safety net. It's time to redirect you to that niggle in the pit of your stomach, because I do not want you to fall back to those great stories keeping you mesmerized and attending to the next feast of fish. I do not want you to waste more time getting better at sharpening the same sword for life. The truth is it is already sharp enough and you could live once again walking your own path, never selling your attention cheaply. It is all about avoiding the ransom attacks from others asking you to carry their fight monkeys on your back. The promised martial reality is an illusion, and your perception of social harmony in the fight world is even a greater deception. It is instinctive to find something wrong in another person's viewpoint and never tackle your own. I would like to think of our routine look in the mirror each morning would be more informative than it is. I get it, you want to be perfect, but the mirror says the opposite most of the time. The question I would ask is, how do I ignore all those opinions and criticisms coming from within and from others? It is simple, stop selling your attention cheaply by turning your head to gain attention. It is always your choice to participate, not the other person's by request. If you are to stop, the connection must be on your terms, knowing you are too busy to stand to attention by giving them the time of the day. It always feels heavy and burdensome to evolve the connection into a socially acceptable communication. If you have no intention to say hi, that is your choice. It is also your choice to feel guilty by not giving the other person your attention. This is the social con, taking your attention by asking to reflect on your questionable behavior. As mentioned, your thoughts are the passive response to carrying other people's monkeys. For the active-minded person, it is more important to keep a check on your own reactions by not being distracted from your current path. It is like you were never there in the first place. So, why are you feeling guilty? The burden you carry is of your own making, just like you are the person who decides to fight. The passive responder always wants to blame the other person for their own missed opportunities. People are meant to help you navigate the world freely, not the other way around. Helping others appeals to society, but it is the trap that takes all your attention and takes you down to ground for submission. The written words are the great pacifier. Those beautiful words inspire vision beyond one's own experiences. This approach does not illuminate poorly formed assumptions and biases that determine our choices and stage play. The person in the mirror decides to fight as well as the aggressor. It takes two like minds to tango, so the decision is mutual, believe it or not. I do not believe all your hard training was meant to stop you accepting a fight. The only one you are deceiving is yourself by being dishonest with the most important person in your life. Again, it is the person in the mirror you should be caring for first. There is no need to carry other people's monkeys to be appreciated at the expense of giving your attention to the aggressor. It is fine that you train harder than anyone else, as long as for success in the social game. You have no intention to address unrealized perceptions of actual unfoldings by staying locked into the passive belief your plans can help you win. The rituals pre and post the fight are the programmed ways the passive person follows, thus responding to the social breadcrumbs to the eventual prize, which is praise. It has been said, history repeats itself, because people just do not learn, because they are too smart. I have suggested these are the people who never ask the right questions, instead listen to me in a passive way. The expert is usually full of shit and self-justifications as a way of ducking their own inner imposter. We are more likely to repeat another person's point of view, because it is easy to quote and sell. We like to reconstruct an expert's vision over one's own. I see the light as freedom fades. I am not going to get rid of my beloved social monkeys, as they pay off at times. I am going to vote for the promises that will pay dividends in my mind the quickest. Who cares if my chosen social monkeys create a brain spasm? My support is my guarantee for salvation, even if it will harm me in the short term. I have always been interested in talking with martial pundits, knowing there is enough swords and hammers out there to fill all the insecurity gaps in people's defense systems. Also, knowing new ideas are the best talking points to gain attention, must be cutting edge, something special. We all have experienced new technologies are often bullshit rather than advancements. This is the reason attention time is hard to come by, as the artist's martial journey is almost to its end. As history records information by rewriting realities in the words of those who control the airways. The passive responder is swayed too easily due to an avalanche of repeated lies. To have the qualifications, then informing listeners you do not have the answers, does not go down well in a world demanding instant solutions. The social hoodwink likes smart people and their promises because they love to imagine outcomes before they act. We all have experienced people with ample qualifications that are totally unsuitable for their positions. Perceived merit is too easily promoted if you have the qualifications to back it up. From there on, every man and his dog have it wrong. The person empowered to lead usually stands dumbfounded, calculating the next move, as they get flanked on the blind side, especially during a multiple attack. So, what is your inner voice telling you that does not seem right? Hopefully these words. The passive responder will not blame others for missed information, because the words are gospel. Here is a thought experiment. Place yourself on a desert island, and start the blame game, offloading your own responsibilities to find answers. To be marooned is about staying alive. Get over the idea that people are better than others. The greatest insight is knowing everyone struggles to get to know their true self and related strengths. Simply, it is your choice to gain self-knowledge. There is one person missing in your life to make a choice. An informed choice is great when playing the social game, meaning you will need to learn current strategy. Anything outside of conscious controls are your real-time actions requiring your own internal repertoire of responses. The laws we live by are the instructions to activate our passive responses, learned and conditioned over a lifetime. The next time you slip on a wet-tiled floor, recognize your independence from social influences. Your planning responses were absent, and you were in the hands of the gods, so to speak. This was an accident that spurs on the alien explanation for passive people's deprivations to explain away a thoughtless reaction. An accident leaves few conscious truths to help envision those instructive stories to help plan future outcomes. When we choose to fight, we are basing our decisions on mental fabrications to gloss over what is about to transpire. You know you do not want to get hit, but you want to hit the aggressor with everything. You better thank our gods for the good games that self-promote abuse of another human being. You like to dominate, but the opponent is not allowed to return the favor, a humane vision to say the least. This is the passive mindset in action, planning your win for social benefits. You need confirmations from your peers to show the world how much work you have put into your fighting prowess. While the active responder can only stay responsible for self-preservation in real time, leaving no time to reflect on past and future glories. The passive responder lives on thoughts, those confabulations of realities that get the public's attention. Self-reflections are good to reinforce self-confirmation biases aimed at protecting the tribe's loyalties and cherished ideologies. The socially organized passive responder tends to spend a lot of time thinking how to justify one's choices. There is a need to defend learned dogma. On the other hand, the active response has no intent to harm, only needing to defend one's freedom. The active mindset never sells attention cheaply for others, and for the defense of their opinions. When you must whine about outcomes, you are only interested in winning, and getting the confirmation nod. During any emergency response, there is no time to be assessed on your social attentions. Protocols can be successfully followed in an orderly manner, avoiding being burnt. Passive responders override life-saving instincts by imagining techniques that will play with fire, hoping not to be burnt. People learning to fight and expect not to get hit is absurd. Simply, if you do not want to get burnt, do not challenge the fire. If you play with fire, you will be burnt. Even the professionals still get burnt. In the martial world, people want to be in full control, but they still get hit badly or get submitted. Inescapably, we are neurologically designed to follow the herd, even if it is to our death. Stupid behavior is usually related to groupthink, drawn into peer-related challenges for some social breadcrumbs. When compared to an emergency response, it has the potential to remind you, it is all about you first. First, meaning before attending to others' needs. Real-time behavior allows for full activation that does not draw you to the fire. You are totally focused on self-preservation. Somehow martial artists think they can challenge the fire, and not be knocked out. In their defense, they are quick to inform you that combat fighting is tough and it is fun. You are correct, it can be fun, so what is the issue? Let's leave things as they are, and those inner gremlins and all. On the face of things, those expert fighters are great at mixing up their skills, are doing fine. All things fighting seem to be unfolding as it should. Safety is important and should not be ignored. A fight is no accident, and you are the cause, like it or not, but a violent attack is different, it is unexpected, just like an accident. Under emergency conditions, you are not planning to whitewash stupid decisions, which you can do under fighting situations to save some face. A changing situation cannot be imitated, so how can you describe it to a student in a thoughtful way? The real world is out of sight, and out of mind. Provocation and disrespect are your creations when you decide to fight. I am putting these words together to help make better choices. I am not here to let people prove themselves at the cost to their attention. Better skills are attached to passive learning that draw you into fighting. The passive responder knows they are never good enough, thus the obsession to win. Your attention is too valuable, so aggressors need to earn your trust before giving them the time of the day. So, why are you standing there waiting for the fight monkey to be placed on your back? Whose issues are you solving? If the experts struggle to stop the proposed knife attack, why are you procrastinating on the problem? You do not have to stay and fight the fire, why are you standing there aiming to prove you can fight the knife attack? The passive responder always waits around for problems to develop. But what if, none of these queries are real, because you were never invited to the party? All passive reactions are a social response learned over a lifetime. Alternatively, the active response is like driving a car, having no need to physically interact with other drivers until you arrive at your destination safely. Just like going to the toilet, forcing the aggressor to wait and wait and wait. The idea is you have no intent to pick up on the fight request and play patsy. The person on the side of the road has no one to stab as your car speeds by. Stop and connect, then you are carrying the monkey of aggression and the decision to evolve the engagement. We are taught to hang around and be wonderful social robots ready to comply and, if necessary, fight back if threatened. The cost of social compliance is one's freedom and self-awareness. Our attention has been diverted to the social request, triggering our instinct to solve problems for others. The unprovoked violent attack is not a fight if it is sudden and out of your control. In these cases, a social connection has not been established, and you are dealing with a real predator. Assuming there is a request, that means you are invited into the social ask to access your passive thoughts to begin posturing. Once the social decision-making process kicks in, your eyes are directed to the shiny knife asking for capitulation or show your defensive colors. You are certainly aware that you are participating in an attack, while hesitating with your own cookbook of aggression. Everything you do is your choice. If you fail, you are also ready with your backup excuses for any missed moments of indecision. Time is the key measure during all social interactions, and it is wasted from start to finish. Your passive resistance is self-fulfilling, aiming to confirm to the world the value of your contributions. The social entrapment of your attention triggers your obsessions with self-defense. This becomes your trip to the dark side of the fight mind, hiding the truth about your inner demons. To realize the active mindset instantly relegates aggressive opportunities to the unimportant bin. The resulting disengagement towards the social trap leaves fighting heroes wanting, waiting for you to attend to their requests. The social urge to be mesmerized by other people's mental fabrications and stories has no place in your timeless mind. Whereas the social mind of the aggressor needs your attention to be able to evolve their intent into a fight. Your freedom is first, and any connection needs your approval to be worthy of your attention. Your disconnected behavior takes no time or effort to redirect aggression to another room for assessment. It is not an amazing feat to take passive thinkers on a ride away from their intentions. Without you, the aggressor is left sitting stranded in the middle of nowhere, so to speak. All attack plans need clear parameters to be fulfilled before impressing bad intentions. We are all good at using social communication traps to hold people to account and even ask them to fight. The request to defend yourself is the same as asking you to consider if you want to fight back. Just remember, you did martial arts not to be hit, but now you want to beat the crap out of that asshole. As mentioned before, if you want to play with fire, being burnt is inevitable. If social aggression sees a patsy, the response is primed to sabotage your freedoms, forcing you to carry the fight monkey. The key insight here is you have taken the time to connect. Now your social training will steamroll your thoughts, evolving the connection through the fight equation that begins with verbal persuasions, moving on to pushing, and finally to the dogfight. This means the inner voice did not rise enough with the fear needed to sway you for an immediate retreat to safety. We seldom trust the inner voice to effectively declutter the brain from all the shit that traps you into martial fighting to produce a social number. Society is wanting you to think passively, asking you to stand muscle-bound ready to defend your honor. If you behave, you are the trigger of the fight like a human robot. There is nothing wrong with fight stuff, but it does determine your social choices. The enlightenment is, to be as you were, to be more normal than normal, to be your best self for yourself, and not act up for the demanding public. Your martial truths are no better than what you had before you were attached at the hip with the fight game. Most of the perceived improvements used in fight settings could have been avoided, helping you to be that normal person again. Your competitive guise captured by fighting can only increase one thing. The reliance on passive learning to fight is just a way of thinking devised for others, a preordained strategy to make you fight. Although you feel stronger and healthier, those inner gremlins are still trying to tell you something, but you are not listening. My question to you is, who is it that is taking advantage of your attentions and loyalties? By severing these, you might get to hear the voice inside removing the rubbish you have been collecting for others. I know your internal senses are seen as gremlins, contaminated with deep-seated social emotions, anxieties, and wishful ideals corroding your true strengths. Social empowerment and technologies can only manipulate you into a passive responder, persuading you to carry other people's monkeys for a few crumbs of attention. Everything we think is secondary to what our gut is telling us, especially when facing aggression. Acceptable dogma can be your curse if socially driven. For me, you are just being human when you take part in a social fight, but the decision is always yours. The alternative is the active solution, which may be expanded upon at some later stage. Thanks for listening to Part 4D, The two-person battle is a very long chapter. Topics still to cover are, to fight without fighting, who is it that must fight? Yes, there are many more parts in the pipeline.